Your family will never have full fulfillment if you're doing what every other family's doing, being like every other family. Your family needs to be your unique version of itself. You need to be a rebel family. Push against the crowd and what everyone else is doing and be you. And that's what we've been trying to help you do these last 2 weeks. This is a 3-part series. This is the final part of our 3-part Rebel Family series to help you uncover your uniqueness and identity as a family so that you'll have more satisfaction, more joy, and more peace as a family. And it's all in celebration of my brand new book, Rebel, shameless plug, which is now in stores everywhere. It just came out this week. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever you buy your books, local bookshops, indie bookshops. It's available. Find yourself by not following the crowd. This is a great book for you to pick up wherever you are. And if you're checking this out during launch week, still go to therebelbook.com for a bunch of bonuses that are still up there for a little bit. But we're taking you through this for your family as well. So without further ado, let's jump into part 3 where we actually apply this stuff in real time.
Let's go.
Okay, so thank you for diving into the series with us. I know some of you have been enjoying the series so far, but we've been like teasing it out. Like the first 2 episodes have been setting up the pain point, setting up the benefits of going your own way as a family. We haven't done the practical work. How do you figure this out? Well, if you've made it this far, you've made it to the practical episode.
Yeah.
How do you find your family's uniqueness? So we're finally there.
I'm so excited. This is where we really put everything into practice of what it means to be a rebel family. We've talked about the why. We've talked about discontent and the patterns we all fall into. But this is where we really try to help give you some vision for stepping into your most fulfilling, connected, purpose-filled way of being as a family. So I'm super excited to dive in here today.
Yeah, so it's so cool when we thought about this series, we're thinking about Rebel, and really what's true for the person is that conformity is taking us one way and it's not the way we were designed. We were designed a certain way. Well, it's the same is true with your family. Like your family is a combination of multiple unique people, even if it's just you and your spouse. Like the two of you now are this unique entity of two become one, and then you add kids and their own uniquenesses. And so there's no way a family can be anything like any other family.
Yeah.
And so it's frustrating when you're trying to be like other families. And so we want to give you permission to be yourself. And if you don't know who yourself is, or if you've never thought about what is my family's uniqueness or my family's identity, well, let's get super practical. In the book, in Rebel, we have a 5-part framework that I put together. It spells out Rebel, so it's super convenient, REBEL. And we don't have time to go through all 5 parts of that framework today, which really are critical for you going from like nice concept, Graham and Shay, to how do I actually find myself? How do I find my family's identity? Each of those steps has an exercise in the book. It's very practical. It's like a coaching session in a book. We're going to do 2 of those steps today because I think we have time for those, and give you 2 very practical exercises that I think will be helpful so you can listen today, but then it'd be fun to maybe, I don't know, take a weekend, take a date night, and sit through maybe doing some of these exercises together as a fam.
I say take a weekend. I mean, any excuse to just go get away, grab a hotel room, and work through these things. And this will be great. If you have young kids and you're listening to this, the goal is a full family participation, but obviously depending on the ages of your kids, that may or may not be possible. So as you're listening to the application of these particular 2 parts of the framework, if your kids are old enough to contribute in conversation meaningfully, then bring them in. Like do this together, do these 2 things together as a family. If your kids are still young, do this together, just the 2 of you, because we started doing these types of exercises. The second one, we've kind of been doing that one for a little bit now. But we started doing these even when the kids were really little, and it just kind of helped even breathe some life into life for us, where you're just in a grind, like every day is the same. Like what are we doing? Where are we headed? This will really hopefully breathe a little bit of energy into you guys to say like, yeah, we might be in an exhausting season right now, or a really full season right now, but we're headed somewhere as a family. Like we're getting to craft a unique fingerprint in the world that is our family. So definitely get away to do this if you have time, and we'll dive into 2 particular areas, 2 particular frameworks out of the 5, starting with resolving to dream again.
Yep.
You want to jump in on
so the R
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the R in Rebel stands for resolve, and it's like a stake in the ground, like I'm going to resolve to dream again. And so my theory is that we're frustrated because we're living out of alignment. We talked about this in part 2, last episode. The reason you're frustrated, the reason your family is frustrated is often because you're living out of alignment with the way your family's designed. Okay, so how do we figure out how we're designed? We have to pay attention to the clues. And I believe that dreams are data points. Dreams are clues. The things that you dream about doing, being, having, big dreams, small dreams. Things you want, things you desires, hopes, ambitions, goals. You could swap in those different words if you don't like the word dreaming, but I think dreams reflect who we are. I love Psalm 37:4. It says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And the word forgive there is the word Nathan, which means to assign or to basically designate or assign. So it can mean I gave you a desire, it's what you wanted, but it could also mean I assigned it to you. Like I signed Chloe's name, I designated her name as Chloe, I gave her the name
like
Chloe.
I implanted the desire.
Yeah, so whether you're a person of faith or not, I think that's a cool indicator of like if we were designed, then our designers put some desires in us as clues for us to figure out how we were made. So we talked about the espresso maker versus the blender last week. It's really frustrating for an espresso maker to try to be anything other than an espresso maker, but there's clues inside. So we start with dreaming again for data points or clues as to how your family is wired.
Yeah, and so I want to keep getting as practical as we can with this in terms of examples. Like when we say dream again, it could be something as large or small as, man, it'd be fun to live in the country. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be cool if our family just lived on the road and we got to travel to all these different countries or that kind of thing? Wouldn't it be cool if we lived in the city and blah, 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 blah? Or something, really, really small. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have people over for dinner every Friday night because we love hosting? Yeah. Like, these are the types of things that we're talking about when it comes to dreaming again. It doesn't have to be these huge, grandiose, like we're opening a bake shops. But that could be on the list also.
Typically, our heads go to the big things. But we're going to give you an exercise in a minute that will help flush out some of the dreams. But small ones can be like, it'd be cool to learn Spanish, Like maybe you have someone who speaks Spanish in your family, but you don't all speak Spanish, or your heritage is a Latin Spanish speaking country. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we just like learned Spanish as a family?
Yeah.
Or like one time Shay and I were talking with our kids and we're like, we love the theater and the arts, but we don't go anymore, or we haven't gone since we had kids. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we just made it a point to go to, like here in Tampa, the Straz Theater or the Mahaffey Theater in St. Pete and see the Nutcracker for Christmas, or go see the symphony? Like, just that's a dream of like a desire, right? Something we would love to do. And we're going to get to this in a second, but the reason why we're doing this primarily is to get intel on ourselves. Yeah. We're not creating a bucket list of things to go do, although certainly go chase those dreams. But that's actually not the point. It's more powerful than that. The point is to understand yourself better. Yeah. And if you have a family and if you have a spouse, well, if what you dream about is going to tell me something about what's meaningful to you. Mm-hmm. So if we don't know what we dream about, desire, hope for, think about, long for, how are we ever going to get to the core of who we are? Because desires are the most powerful things in the world, and they do drive us. So we want to get some intel on ourselves. They tell us a lot about how we're wired.
And I don't want to jump the gun, but one of the other reasons that we're looking at desire is to lead to purpose, right? Yeah. It's to discover why we're here as individuals, but then also specifically within the context of family. Like, why is our family here? What is the imprint that we're supposed to leave on this earth? And our desires are really road maps or road signs. I think of hiking that say like, this way, this is what's going to lead you into your unique purpose, is assessing the desires that have been planted in our heart and mind as individuals and as a family.
Yeah, a little preview. If you get the book Rebel, the very end, one of the last chapters, I walk you through something called the Life Purpose Matrix, and it really is built on part of it. 50% of it is built on desires and dreams. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to step into your purpose if you don't know what you desire. And that's the beautiful thing, is your family's purpose and mission, whatever language you like to use, is largely going to be determined by what you as a family care about, dream about, or excited about.
Interested in.
It's not going to be something you hate.
Right.
Like short, like punchline. It's going to be something you probably as a family, like, we love this. And so that's probably what's going to lead into your purpose.
Absolutely. I love it.
So one exercise that I want you guys to do, whether you're just married, it's just the two of you, for sure do this. If you have kids, like Shay was saying, start to bring them into it if they're of age, or you want to just see what comes out of their mouth. Like, sure, let them say something. Maybe you're just like, yeah, I'll write that down, Johnny. Sure. Yeah, gummy bears for everyone all the time. But it's something simple called the 50 Dreams exercise.
You say it's something simple. It's simple. It is not easy.
I didn't say easy. Those are two different words. That's why they're different words in the dictionary. Simple is one thing, easy is another. This took me a week to do it the first time I did it.
It took me, though, like 15 minutes. I don't know what that says about you versus me.
I know, and our daughters are the same. I made my daughters do this. I asked them if they wanted to do this, and I gave them 20 minutes to see how many they could come up with. 50 things you want, 50 things you could desire, dream about. Chloe came up with 25 of them in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Vera, 3.
Yeah.
And she was like, Dad,
that does not surprise me.
That's all I got. I was like, Vera, you're like me.
Vera only had 3.
She only had 3. She's like, Dad, I can't think of anything else I want. I'm like, really?
That's actually accurate.
Right? So the exercise has got 3 parts.
I think I had 65, probably.
Again, welcome to, you'll find out who's got no problem coming up with desires.
But do elaborate on, like, what is it exactly?
So it's a 3-part exercise. Yeah. At part 1 is the hardest part, which is write out 50 things that you dream about. So you're going to want to do this together. In the book, I have you do it as an individual. You can certainly do that, but do it together. Like, hey, let's get a joint document going. If it's Shay and I doing it, so what are 50 dreams that we might have as a family? And so if you're getting stuck here, I love the language that Tim Ferriss has in this question. It's helpful for me. Maybe it's helpful for you, which is, if you were the smartest person in the world and it were impossible for it to fail or for you to fail, what would you dream of doing, being, or having? So if you two or your family were the smartest family in the world and it were possible for your family to fail at this, what would you as a family dream of doing?
And you have like endless resources, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be grounded in what's actually in your bank account.
Don't ground it in reality, because again, the point isn't that we go do these. The point is to get information on ourselves. If one of the things I want to dream, if I dream about, is to go to the moon, like, whether I make it to the moon or not, that's okay. Well, that's very interesting. And we're going to get to that in a second, but it tells me something about...
Is it the solitude, Graham? What is it about the moon?
Zero gravity? Bumpy surfaces? Monochromatic environments? A lot of potential data points there. Yeah. So you're going to want to write down 50. And 50 is for a reason, because it's a lot.
It's hard.
You might get 10 really quickly. The ones that are already at the surface are going to probably come out sooner. Like the things that are not new or surprising to you. Like we've talked about this, or it's in my heart a lot. But then getting past those to some of the smaller things, like, well, it would be really cool. I've always wanted to. Well, yeah, didn't we say we want? Like, just start to. That's why you got to get to 50. Don't stop till you get to 50, even if you feel like you're making stuff up at the end. And don't judge yourself
or each other.
Because
now we're doing this together, so don't dream shame.
Oh gosh, that's the last thing you want to do. This is going to send people.
Don't dream shame whatever comes out of the other person's mouth. Just put it down.
This sidebar, this might be a very helpful moment if you feel like you don't know your spouse that well in this season. Let's say it's a season where like you've drifted apart, or like you just changed,
or you're just not
time.
good at in-depth conversation.
You will learn a lot about each other when you're like, oh, really? Like you dream of...
You want to own 20 cats?
Yeah.
That's
you're a cat lady? But like, so don't judge it or judge each other. But a lot of times, depending on your background, you might judge yourself. Like you think you want to write something down, but then you don't. It's like, bro, if you knew you wanted to write it down, but you didn't, it's still a dream you have. So you might as well be honest with yourself.
Yeah, so fight the urge to curate what you say.
Yeah.
To over spiritualize what you say, or shame the things that are coming up for you. Maybe you're just like, I really wish we had a bigger kitchen because we could host lots of people over our house. Don't shame that and be like, oh, I should just be content with what I have. Like, just listen, just create some space for the things that are coming up for you.
That's a great example, because if you shamed yourself from writing that down, you miss out on learning about the fact that you care about hosting.
Right, and
which means other people miss out on your hospitality just because you're like, I shouldn't want a bigger kitchen. This is not about the bigger kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a data point. It's a clue telling you something about yourself. So you write 50 together, and that might take a while, but that's going to be, you're going to have some ammo because it's the two of you, which is great. Step 2 is to, as a couple and as a family, identify the top 10. Yeah. You're like, okay, these are all great.
Do you think that how important do you think it is that they are aligned and like in agreement on those top 10? Or is there a certain extent to that it's like the 5 that were the most important to you and the 5 that were the most important to me? Like, how do you think they should navigate that as a couple?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think there's any right or wrong here.
Yeah.
But I do think in this part of the process, you're still, it's very like you're sharing the load here. So like, if you want to make it simple, sure. What are your top 5?
Yeah.
What are my top? But there might be overlap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
things to consider, right?
Yeah.
Because there may be something like on your list would be become a New York Times bestselling author.
Right.
That wouldn't be on my list, but just because it's not on my list, I would say we shouldn't probably cancel that out as an idea.
Sure.
Or in our top 10. So you might just want to consider that there may be some that you're like, I can literally care less about that, but it really matters to you.
Yeah.
So maybe having each of you identify the ones that feel the most exciting and the most important. Like, I'm going to regret if I never do this.
Yes.
Make sure each of you are kind of identifying those things. Good. And then, yes, we are also going to want to look for overlap because there's a reason that you and I have been put together. And it's not just for our own joy and enjoyment. It's also for our impact in the world.
Yes.
So we do want to find those places where we overlap. Things like impact for you and I. Things like helping people live in alignment. Like we overlap.
Part of why we're doing this podcast is come out of some of these.
Like loving to teach and having some kind of stage. Like those would be overlap. So I guess I'm just processing in real time, but I would say it's probably all 3 aspects are important. What's most important to you? What's most important to me? And then what do we want to get behind together, or where are we seeing overlaps? That should kind of all be included in that top 10.
Yes. So you make a top 10, but it doesn't stop there. The final part of this exercise is next to those top 10 is write down why. Why do you want this? And this is not justifying a want. I love what Dan Sullivan says. I think it was in his book, 10X is easier than 2X. You don't ever justify wants. By definition, there's no justification. They're not a need. They're just something you want. Yeah. So never justify your want. That's not what we're doing here. This is self-exploration for you. Yeah. If I wrote down, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. Why? Like, why do I want that? That's the goal we want to get to. Is not really the dream as much as why. What motivates that dream? What are you
after also? Yeah.
And that could tell me a lot. Well, I want to be a person that has impact, or I love coming up with ideas that other people find useful. And it's like, okay, there's so many cool applications that could come out of that why. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, if someone's like, I really want to hike Mount Everest. Okay, why? Well, one of the beautiful things that could come up is like, I feel most alive when I'm outside.
Come on now.
Like driving to my 9 to 5 and sitting in my cubicle every day feels like it's sucking the life out of me.
Yeah.
And I feel the most alive when I'm just like out in nature and I'm moving my body. That's some amazing data. Now, whether you go climb Mount Everest or not,
almost doesn't matter.
Maybe you decide to relocate to Montana. Maybe you decide that you need to quit your 9 to 5 and you need to go pursue a job that's going to allow you to be outside and be moving your body. Like, man, that's like gold right there for really caring for each other well, and then acknowledging the unique way that you've been made and I've been made and what that can mean for us together. So
I was on a podcast. My brother Wes got me connected with one of his good buddies. Cal Walters has a really cool leadership podcast. But I was on his podcast talking about Rebel. We were talking about dreams. And he shared with me, he said, man, before I got into the military, got into the leadership position I'm in, I wanted to be a missionary. Like when I was like in my early 20s, late teens, I wanted to be a missionary. I did some missions trips, and like if I had a dream list, like that would be on there to be a missionary. But in my season of life, it doesn't make sense with what I'm doing with my family. And I was like, well, that's cool. Whether you're a missionary, full-time, short-term, either way or not, what do you think it was about those mission trips that made you say, I love this, I want to be a missionary? Was it the travel? Was it the type of people you met? Was it being out of America, and having just that reset? Was it serving people? Was it that you packed light? You just had your duffel bag for the week and it just felt like so light mentally? Like, what was it? And we started to talk about it. And that's kind of that's what we want to get to with the whys. Why is this meaningful and important to me?
Yeah, those conversations.
Oh, I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about how
I know, I'm
like
getting emotional for people when they have this conversation. Yeah, what they can discover.
It's so powerful. And there's going to be expensive, hard, complicated ways to achieve that, and easy, cheap, free. Today we could implement that. Like we could go for a hike today. Let's just go out, like maybe it's not Mount Everest, but let's just go for a hike today.
Yeah.
And we can start. And while we're on the hike, we can dream about where else could we go to hike or whatever. So
that's good.
It's so, What's beautiful about this is that, and I talk about this in Rebel, you will, like, we're desire-based creatures. Like, that's why incentives work. People don't make change unless there's incentive to make change. And so if you want change in your family, change in your life, like, and I have to do this all the time. We were having a conversation this weekend about, like, I got to get back in touch. Like, what do I want in this season? Not to be selfish, but so I can better understand myself.
You can be alive.
So I can be alive, and so I can pursue and make changes.
Be a full person, yeah.
Right? Like, desire is a good thing, but it tells us something about ourselves, because what you desire is different than what someone else listening to this desires.
And often very different than what
I
you desire.
Which is kind of God's joke on us.
Which is an interesting challenge. That's probably needs to be its own podcast episode. Is like, what if you want very different things?
Yeah.
Which you and I do want very different things.
I wonder how long that list could be. We should do that in real time.
Man.
Okay. Is this making sense?
That was the first part. That's
the 50 dreams exercise.
So do that on one little, if you're getting away, then make one session out of that.
Yes.
And then go have a really nice meal. And then do like part 2. We'll do the next exercise.
Yeah, we'll jump right into the next exercise. So that's the R in Rebel, is resolving to dream again. And just, if you ever felt like, I don't know, this dreaming thing, it's kind of foolish. No, dreaming is not foolish. It's foundational to figuring out who you are. It truly is. So we're all wired to be dreamers. Maybe it's been beaten out of you. In the book, I talk about something called the identity crisis intersection. I won't get into it today, but it talks about, like, what do you do when you've had a dream die? Because a lot of times we don't dream because we had a dream die a long time ago, and we're just like, I'm done dreaming. Like, that whole thing.
Or you get a job and you have kids and a mortgage, and you're like, there's no point in dreaming now. I mean, like, I just got to show up. I just got to put food on the table. Like, I guess my dreams have to die because of the season of life that I'm in. So whether someone else killed your dream or
you're kind of killing your own
dream.
You're
killing your own dream because you're just, you're following the desire to be married and have kids and have a family. Like, there's a lot of reasons why our dreams die. So this is just like, let's like shine a light on those things. Let's breathe a little bit of oxygen back into them, and let's use them to be hopeful and intentional about what life could look like for us.
So good. I'm glad you like, life turns the volume down on our desires or mutes them all together, and we're just trying to ask you to turn the volume back up so that we can better understand ourselves.
Yeah, and to tie it in with like kind of the Rebel theme is that some of these things that are going to come up are going to require choices that are very rebellious in nature, right? So if we go back to the Mount Everest example, maybe you do quit your 9 to 5 and you go from a high-paying 9 to 5 banking job to, working at a national park for half the pay, but you feel fully alive.
10x the enjoyment.
10x the enjoyment, 10x the fulfillment. That's a very rebellious, risky decision. And so that's what we're kind of trying to invite you into, is that the decisions that end up happening as a result of these dreams are probably in a beautiful way going to be countercultural, and they're going to be counter what everyone else around you is doing, counter conformity, right?
Yeah.
But they're going to lead to a lot of joy and purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah. So. All right, dream again. So the second part of the Rebel framework is the E. The first E is to establish the outcomes you want in life. So if you think of dreaming as like a 30,000-foot view of like, I think these are the things we care about, we would dream about way, way, way up high. Now let's go down on the ground and let's get specific. What are the specific outcomes we want? So we're really talking about vision. And there's this great line in Proverbs King Solomon said 3,000 years ago, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I love doing word studies in the Bible, because the word for perish there in the Aramaic means to be empty or void or vacant. So you could translate it to say, where there's no vision, the people are empty, or where there's no vision, your family is void or empty or vacant. And when you have a vacancy, it can be filled by other people's visions, other people's ideas of what your family should look like. That's what's happening, is if you don't have a clear vision for your family, your in-laws, your neighbors, your coworkers, your church friends, they all have a vision for your family. And it's unintentional. It's just like fills the void that you've left there by not having a vision. And so that may be great if it lines up with what you value, but maybe it doesn't line up with what you value.
Meaningless distraction also fills the void. Like,
social
media fills the void when you don't have vision. Netflix fills the void when you don't have vision. Endlessly scrolling fills the void when you don't have vision for your family. So there's a lot that can sneak in and fill the void.
So it's our responsibility to fill that void for our own lives as individuals and for our lives as a family. So what we want to do in this step is I want to give you a practical exercise. And this has been really helpful for me. And since we're talking about Rebel, we can go there. Shay has kind of some of her own takes on vision, and you might have your own take. But this is a helpful question or prompt that I think will get your wheel spinning, especially after you've done the 50 dreams exercise. So it's a simple scenario. Let's imagine that you're hanging out with us here right now virtually, but let's say, we're done hanging out together on this podcast, the three of us, me, Shay, and you, and we bump into you 3 years from now. Maybe you come to one of our upcoming family goals retreats that we're going to be having. Little preview there. Ooh. Maybe you come to see us at a conference. Maybe we're vacationing or we're hiking Mount Everest together, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's so funny because 3 years ago we talked about. No, I won't. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, but it's 3 years from now in the future, you bump into us and we say, oh my gosh, how the heck are you? And you say, Graham and Shay, this has been the best 3 years of our life.
Since I started listening to Family Goals podcast.
Yeah, great testimonial. Our family has had the best 3 years as a family ever. Yeah. If we said, wow, that's amazing, tell me about that, what would you be telling us? What would have to be true for you to say to us that it has been the best 3 years of your family's lives?
Yeah.
Now, this is a journal prompt that you guys could start bulleting out, like, what would have to be true? Well, and I don't know what's going to come up for you. Think about the 6 core areas of life we've discussed previously. Your work, your time, the way you spend your time, your finances, your health, your relationship, your spirituality. Think about those areas. No right or wrong here. What's great about this exercise is 3 things. One, it's open-ended. So it could be financial. We paid off all of our debt. It could be spiritual. We all went back to church. And our kids are thriving. I don't know what it is for you. It's open-ended. It's not business, or it's not just your marriage. It's like anything that comes up. 2, it's the time frame. It's not a 10-year goal. 10-year goals.
It's not when the kids are older. It's not when you make more money. It's right now. It's the next 3 years. The best 3 years.
It's not too far, 10, but it's also not too soon. We're going to change our whole family this year. It's yeah, I love that motivation, urgency, but it's easy to get discouraged.
Or this weekend, the way it is in the Cochran house.
Yeah, no, how are we going to change and fix everything?
Guys, sorry, pause. Chloe walked in this past weekend, Saturday morning. We're in bed with coffee, and Chloe walks in and she goes, oh, you guys rethinking your life like you do every Saturday morning? Is this Rethink Our Life Saturday?
I was like, so I'm offended.
Offended and seen at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Golf clapping.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's real. So it's not like, hey, let's change everything right now. But 3 years is, I think, a magic time frame. I stole this question from Rich Litvin, but because when I heard it, I was like, I think this is magic for me because 3 years is close enough in the future, to your point, Shay. This is it
accounts for your current season of life.
It's really close to our current season. I know the age of my kids. There's some things with work or finances that are already in motion that will probably be true in 3 years. But it's also meaningful. It's close enough that it's meaningful. I'm excited. We could change our life in 3 years. And at the same time, you could do a lot of damage in 36 months. You could change your marriage in 36 months, your finances in 36 months, your health as a family in 36 months. So the goal here... You could be completely
debt-free.
Oh, my gosh.
You could have a healthy, thriving marriage.
Absolutely.
There's a lot
you
can
could
change.
You could be an unrecognizable rebel family 3 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's the exercises. Now that you've kind of gotten some data on some of the dreams, these are going to come up probably to the surface a lot quicker now. You start to look at okay, what will we have to say is true to 3 years from now looking backwards? And that's the third reason why I love is that it's past tense.
Yeah.
You're not saying, I hope this is true in 3 years. It's forcing your brain to carve some new neural pathways of okay.
You're envisioning
it has been the best 3 years of our lives because, we started hiking together as a family. Our kids have done this. When you say it in past tense, it feels forced at first, but it trains your brain to say, oh, yeah, that could be true. Yeah. It's already happened.
Yeah.
So it just forces you to think and get curious and wonder a little bit.
I think for this one, I could see it being helpful if you each do it individually and then you come together and read it and then kind of maybe identify the similarities and the overlap.
I like that.
No right or wrong way to do this, but I feel like it would just be interesting to see because at least with us, you're thinking about certain things about the family and I'm thinking about, or you're thinking about certain things about life and I'm thinking about certain things because we each have kind of slightly different domains. We have different things that we're passionate about or that we really carry a lot of weight in our mind around, things, hopes and dreams around different areas. So I would want all of that accounted for.
That's good.
And so it might be a good idea to do this side by side, read it to each other. Okay, so interesting. Now let's see if we can craft it together. I agree with that. Oh yeah, you're so right. I love that one. Yes, that would be awesome. Man, I didn't even think about that. And then you kind of like recraft it together.
Love that.
That would be really cool.
I love that. Yeah.
Do it.
Just do it. That's the best 3 years of your life framework.
And this is cool just to kind of bring it back to having the kids there. If your kids are old enough to do this, then just a reminder, bring them into this. So with the 50 Dreams exercise, if they're old enough, bring them into it. With this best 3 years, bring them into it. Might be kind of hard for them to envision depending on what their ages are, but it would be cool to get their input, Yeah. And a sidebar idea here. Even if the kids are little, or even if they can't quite contribute intellectually the way that would be meaningful to the conversation, what a beautiful opportunity to just allow their voice to be heard.
Oh, that's
so
good.
there have been seasons where we ask the girl's opinion on something, knowing that we have no intention
Keep it coming.
incorporating.
What else do you think? And what else?
Right? The cell phones is like what comes to mind for me. But isn't it beautiful, though, and it sets a precedent for your voice does matter, and we really do want your opinion. And really, at the end of the day, we're going to make the decision that we think is best, but it does create a family culture where everyone's able to contribute to the conversation, and everyone's dreams and desires are heard and like, oh wow, that would be cool. And you're not dismissive. We learn to like hear each other. It's great for your kids to interact and listen to what each other is saying without making fun of it or downplaying it or anything like that. Like, what a beautiful coaching opportunity for your family about how we make space for what other people are thinking and what they want and what they feel like they need without judging it or criticizing it. It's just beautiful. So whether or not they can really, it makes the list or not based on their age, like do it, still do it.
Yes. It's a unifying event.
It is. It's a unifying event. It lets everybody's voice be heard, even if it's like, we have gummy bear casserole at dinner.
Yeah. And I love that. And last thought there is definitely let them see you guys go through this process because
unless you're like in Bali doing it, that'd be nice. Just
without
off on your own without the kids. Sorry,
okay.
I got vacation on the brain.
That's a great idea. Let's go to Bali. Long flight for us, but worth it probably. But even if you come back from Bali, bring them into this like over the dinner table.
Yeah.
And say, hey, Mommy and I did this thing, and tell them about we wrote down things we dream about as a family for us. We did like a vision. Like even if they don't get it, it's very instructive for your kids to see that, like Mom and Dad talk about what they want and what they dream about, and they're collaborating on it, and they're thinking into the future and wondering what would have to be true for me to say it's been the best 3 years, which is just like showing them that this kind of work is meaningful and that their own desires are meaningful and that you can tell them, look, dreams are clues. Your dreams are data points. The things you care about are clues. Like we're trying to figure out our unique family identity. So these are very valuable to bring your kids into the process. That's it for today because we don't have a ton of time to go into it. But hopefully you're starting to see that we're cracking open this process of self-discovery. You're starting with desires. You're getting clear on then, okay, boots on the ground, what does that outcome look like that we're shooting for? What I like, obviously I'm biased, go buy the book, Rebel, but go through the rest of the framework because then we start to do really 3 important things after that. One is before you start to, let's go change our family, there are so many negative thoughts, habits, and patterns that are holding you back from your family's uniqueness and your family's identity. And there's some inner stories that you're telling yourself.
Probably some cultural narratives
in
there.
the family. So like step 3 is all about like undoing some of that old programming and code. And then we have to step into like how do you start to live out this uniqueness. And then finally, in the final step, there's a cool exercise on creating your own family values, which maybe we can do a whole episode on by ourselves. But
we kind of did the Family Vision Weekend.
Oh, that's true. So you could piggyback that episode with this as well. But you can start to then take, now that you've done some of this deep work of what we care about as a family, how can we craft it into a family values and mission statement? And that's going to lead into what I alluded to, the life purpose matrix, which is just like a filter for making decisions as a family. Is this like family mission like material, or is it just like not good enough for what we really value as a family?
Is it going to just fill up our time?
Yeah,
is it going to just distract us?
So some cool stuff.
It's a great decision-making filter for what are we going to participate in? What are we going to sign up for? What are we going to,
that's good.
You have time is a finite resource. So it really does, that can help you stay on mission, stay focused on like, what is our unique purpose, and do these things that these opportunities that we're being presented with, do they align with what we say we really care about and what we really want out of life?
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Where's your Rebel Red tank top, by the way? I'm so disappointed.
I know. Well, you're representing. See, I'm representing the black and these black arrows, the conformity arrows.
Do I get a bonus pay for wearing all red?
Yeah, checks in the mail. Checks in the mail. Hopefully you've enjoyed this 3-part series, and hopefully you've picked up a copy or two of Rebel. It's a great read, fast read. There's readers' questions in the back, a reader's guide, so you can even discuss it as a couple or as a family or in a small group. We're actually taking a few hundred business leaders at our church through it. Shay's taking a group through it as well. It's applicable to everybody, but I try to make it super actionable, and it's not a formula of, hey, here's who you are. It's how to figure out you figure out who you are. I think it's really approachable, and it's a light read too. So that way you read it and do it. I don't want to just give you a lot to read. So thanks for hanging out with us for these 3 parts. We'll finish with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
It is Labor Day, which means we got a 3-day weekend. So I'm really grateful that we had a 3-day weekend. We got to go out on a little brunch date this morning. We got to work out. I dragged him into spin class.
That was hard, y'all.
It's just great to bring your spouse to like watch them suffer alongside you.
Were you loving that?
I was tired.
You're like, dude, he looks tired. He looks tired.
That sucker. No, it's fun to share that kind of thing, So I'm grateful that we got to do that and then go out to brunch. And then we have like the whole day off.
Super fun. Yeah. I'm grateful for that too. I'm grateful for the book coming out. Like, this has been 18 months in the process for me. So like, most people are like, oh, it's cool. You have a book coming out. Like, it's no big deal. Like, are you starting to promote it now? I'm like, nope. Been promoting it for 4 months straight.
Tired of talking about it.
Yeah, like, so in my world, it's like, it's so long, but most people are like, oh, cool, I think I saw something. Did you post something about the book? I'm like, yeah, I've posted a lot of things about the book, unfortunately. So I'm grateful that it's out there in the world. People are starting to read it. Reviews are starting to come in. And like, as a content creator, it's helpful to hear feedback, right? So it's been fun to hear what people are getting out of it and what they like about it. So yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. As always, we love, speaking of feedback, we love to hear what would be helpful for you in terms of topics that we could cover that would be encouraging to you or insightful for you. So wherever you're consuming this, leave a comment or leave a review, and in that, tell us what you would love to hear us cover. It matters to us that this is a valuable use of your time. So we just always love any opportunity for feedback, and we're open. We're pretty open books. We're a combined open book.
2 books that are very open. Whatever you want to know. Yeah, love it. Great idea.
See you guys next time.